One other, what?
You wanted another question, you know, first.
Go ahead.
On committees, I mean, there's proposals the committees have put, or that are on the committees, like Code of Conduct and Ethics, which is on the HRC committee, which, if it was gonna be done, I think it should be done at the board. I don't
We talked about that, Rebecca and I don't remember when.
I had it listed under committee of the whole or
I did
JP&L.
Yeah.
I can pull up what I
I think we
have.
said committee of the whole is what we
Committee of the
agreed
whole.
at the board level.
I wanna
I'll pull
refer it
it
to
in.
JP&L, because otherwise we're never gonna get through it. And if anybody can participate at committee level, anybody can. But I do feel, we're still not even done with our own stuff.
Yeah, I don't think we have the time.
I don't think we have the time
support-
for
yeah,
the
I don't
whole,
think-
so it's gotta go to a committee.
Oh.
HRC made sense, and maybe it was Tyler that was talking, I can't remember who I was talking to about
We
this.
talked about it, so
Yes.
that might have been it.
And that might have been it, and I believe, Tyler, you explain why you thought it would be a good idea to go to HRC.
There's benefits of both. So, the benefits of the HRC is it's a general new group that, their concept, it wouldn't just impact village, but also school district and other community boards. So they would develop a code of ethics that everyone would be impacted and working under the same code.
Exactly. All our committees.
So that's kind of the one advantage, why I think if you as a board worked on it, it would solely be for the village. It's not, it wouldn't probably apply to the school district or any of that. But we don't, the one thing about the submission from HRC is we don't know if the school district or the school board, or we don't know if any of the other community partners would want that, so.
But
there's-
they're on the HRC,
As liaisons, correct.
right? So that brings a tie.
No.
Yeah.
Anyways, either way, I know that's been talked about at the board level, and said, you know, for ourselves, for board members, but I did like that, even if we do it at the board level or at JP&L, that it applies to our committee, I mean, it's gonna apply to
Right,
more than
my
just ourselves.
assumption is that it was more, it was holistic, that it applied to all committees, commissions, anyone who is doing business in the village. Extending it to the school, district, that's where it becomes a little bit more complicated because it involves, you know, the buy-in from the other groups.
Mhm.
So, I mean, my recommendation would be, but I'm fine with doing it either way, that we start at the village level and say all of the, you know, all of the people who represent the village in one way or another, whether they're appointed, elected, or, you know, volunteer groups, are members of that, and then hopefully, you know, the school board and the other members of the community would wanna buy into that as well. That's a thought. Otherwise, I mean, if you wanna do it all at once and that's a bigger fish, but that's fine.
I think we can only govern what we govern.
Right.
We can't tell the school district
Right.
what they wanna do.
No, of course
So
not.
I don't, and I think it's, you know, I think if we're gonna proceed, it should be at the board level. Just, this is gonna cross so many things, and I
You're
think
gonna need an
people's
attorney.
understanding of
Is there a
what this
differing
is.
opinion to that? Cause if not, I'd be happy to update the HRC during your next meeting.
I think you're gonna need an attorney in the room.
Mhm.
Ethics policy is quite simple because we have the Wisconsin Ethics Board. I mean, like, it's not gonna that be hard. When we're talking code of conduct, that is the hard part. I don't think it would apply to staff because we already have our human relations, our human resource manual that they follow. It's more of appointed officials and elected officials, and you're just doing a code of conduct for yourselves. So that's, I think that'll take a lot of discussion, but that's more, it's not legal, like ethics is a law, like you can't steal, and if you do, here's the steps that you take, and we refer it to the state most of the time for those types of government accountability if one of us steals or launders money. But or promises favors for, whatever. And you'll see other communities, the state takes care of it. So the ethics part's gonna be quite simple, in my opinion, and yeah, maybe the attorney can draft it up in a week. But it's the code of conduct that is more subjective, and it's your own process of, well, what does that mean?
Well, if we take that on, not the HRC, I mean, the context of this discussion is where does it fall within the priorities compared to everything else?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
No.
So right now I have it on your list, your current list, but it has no timing associated with it.
Mhm.
And in my mind, when I go through the other things, I kick it back because I want you to kind of finish some of the stuff that you have going on.
I
Just so
do-
you know that that's my thought process going
Right.
into it. It's not like a,
I think it'd be very beneficial to have if we're gonna apply it to committees as well, to have the perspective of a committee give us recommendations. So when Tyler mentioned the HRC and they wanna do it, I feel like that's what we have committees for, so they can talk about it, you know, and give us some recommendations, and then they're not gonna write it. I just think that'd be helpful. It's kind of like doing budgeting, you know, or CEA, or they give you a recommendation, or Plan Commission gives us recommendations for zoning.
And even if it went to the HRC, there's also other policies that you've requested from them that need to come first.
Yeah,
For me,
they're
such as
backlogged.
holiday-
They
Okay,
got-
they're backlogged, so
Yeah,
such
they
as holiday
three or four in
decorations,
queue.
I guess for holiday
Diversity.
decoration by September, so we wanna
Holiday
close that, that'll be great,
decoration,
and then we
yeah.
also have trick or treat. That we had up there, we had wanted them to do that in an off-season, when it wasn't in front of us, so, I mean,
Also,
it's not,
hiring, or they're gonna review hiring
Correct.
procedures as
Yeah.
well as our
Right.
language and RFPs.
Right.
but my request is that, can we
So-
finish the first two?
Yeah.
We just need to, okay.
I totally agree.
But for the sake of tonight, what I would need to know is, do you want HRC to put on hold
Yeah.
as that a priority, which I could relay to
I
them?
mean, I think I would phrase it as we would appreciate recommendations from them on a code of conduct policy, but, you know, not that I think it does reside in the board, but we would appreciate their views on it, I feel like.
Right, so
I
that's
do
all,
too.
yeah, so that's not as intensive of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So
they
I-
don't need to come up with it.
Okay,
So
I
I'll
could
take,
articulate that.
I'll take code of conduct off of your list as a group, and then at a later date, whenever they bring that back, do you want it to come back to committee of the whole, or to the board
JPL.
itself?
I think it should come to committee of a whole,
Should
or
be
the
the
board,
board.
yeah, it's a board
Right.
issue. Because we're being asked to be the moral arbiters of ourselves here, so it should never be a subsection of the whole board in that regard, even for preliminary discussion. It's gonna be a heated topic for sure, so it's only fair that the entire board is present when we discuss that. That's
Do we need to
my
take a
opinion.
vote? Is that, since we have two different, like, do you need, what's the?
Yeah. But, so why don't we do this? So we know it's not gonna be for a little while. I mean, who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe it's not that maybe it's pretty simple. I mean, we're thinking that it's gonna be something really darn out. It may not be at all. So maybe we come back and revisit it once they've had an opportunity to go through it. Is
Do
that
we
fair?
have other sample codes of conduct for elected, appointed, and other officials that we're gonna use for this,
I
or?
believe has a bunch.
I
Mhm.
think we're gonna, do we have to decide where it goes tonight?
No.
No.
That's what I'm saying, let's just come back to it at another time, and I'll list it under, to be determined, we'll make a new category.
I had a couple other, conservation had the refuge utility, and then we had solar for neighborhood loan.
Yeah, I
program.
know,
I'm just
my
thinking of
top.
staff time. I would like them to focus on solar for the municipal
too.
building. If we're gonna do it, let's focus where they can, I know that other ones are.
But the neighborhood,
don't
neighborhood
stay up
zone is on
It's frozen,
We
yeah,
need to
are you
get
hearing the
that-
feedback?
I'm sorry.
So they,
I am.
I think we need to decide.
there's discussion here about not, advising conservation that the board's not interested right now in pursuing a program on, solar, but they wanna focus on solar on our municipal buildings.
Yeah.
Wait,
Which I-
why? Oh, no, I heard trustee Maher, but I'm just saying, we have a loan pool, so.
Which is frozen, that we said we were gonna come back and reevaluate.
Right now, they're only concentrating on municipal buildings and the neighborhood loan program.
Mhm.
Right.
Oh,
Alright.
so the neighborhood loan program would go to a solar loan program for municipal buildings?
No.
For
No,
houses.
for homes, they're two separate things. So if you have solar, and there's two branches, one would be on just municipal buildings, that's a focus for them. Another, separate,
That takes money.
is for yes,
To
correct,
implement that, so that's,
Correct.
would be our budgeting cycle, because it's
Right.
municipal buildings.
yes,
Okay.
correct. And then second, residential, as far as or homeowners getting loans to put on solar panels or any other solar
Which
installations.
doesn't require budgetary, because it's sitting there. I mean,
Correct, but I think it's also a concerted effort for administration. I mean, is that where you wanna be putting the emphasis of the resource to do the program? If we restructure the loan program and it takes the program out of where it is now, being managed by staff, I would have a much different opinion. But I can't, people can go and get a private loan for
Yeah.
it. I don't,
of course, this would be like, there's obviously, if it's a government revolving loan, that it's
Mhm.
better than going and getting a loan from a bank.
correct, but I would want a bank associated facilitated arm. Because if not, we're gonna continue to
Right.
run into the same issues that we've run into with the neighborhood loan program. And whether that becomes a priority of the housing study, I'm not sure how that.
Can we go through the list and just say ones we don't wanna see
Yeah,
disappear?
so we have 8 minutes left, so, I just wanna make sure that we're providing you with enough direction, so, the things, yeah, I mean, I think that is reasonable to go through the list. Do you wanna start of the things that you don't want to see disappear
Yeah,
from
lead
next
service
year, or?
lead service replacement program, I would love to see us looking at some way of helping to fund, the private side of the, lead pipes, issue.
The sidewalk program evaluation, I think we need to take that up during budget.
I agree, sidewalk program, administrative review, organization structure, village hall and senior resource center, I mean, I'm assuming that will still, that we're not leaving that with the transition planning, that we're still
No,
gonna be doing
we're actually
something.
gonna be including that in light of that, that update from, Diane, we're gonna be including that within the scope of the RFP that we bring back.
And wait, can I just, we skipped over, the special assessment management software, is that only for sidewalks? So if that changes, we would.
No, Mark added that, and I've actually not, and this, that, I met with department heads a while ago to review all the initiatives that they submitted, and this was something that was added very late. So I haven't had an opportunity to talk with you, Mark, about you and how you added on
Well, this is a bit of a carryover from last year. Not so much for sidewalks, but again, we're talking about, the lateral replacements that we're entering into 5-year payback agreements with. The board has in the past talked about looking at how they fund for alleys. Certainly, I think that there's a sense from what I hear from discussion that expanding the mechanisms available for lead service laterals would be of interest. Also, there's alternatives to loans, and again, we can, solar panels, for example, could be some sort of assist with special assessments for payback instead of framing it as a loan. There's a whole variety of things and initiatives that could apply, but we've got to make sure that these are soundly documented and shared so that when we have real estate transactions, we're properly disclosing. I am not super comfortable with trying to manage that in spreadsheets and Post-it notes. So that was kind of the impetus behind that background request.
Communication management plan, is that our communication policies that we're still trying to get through?
Correct.
We need to.
Special event policy.
You know what, that's on your list upcoming,
Oh,
because it was just deferred from another meeting, so right now it is slated to come back to you if your meeting on the 15th goes as planned on September 16th.
Firearm replacement, I'm assuming we have to do that, but is that a budgetary discussion?
Yes.
Okay. What does age-friendly plan implementation, does that involve any software, or is it mostly just the vote center?
That's a really huge
Yeah.
issue and plan that has been presented to us.
Correct, it came before you, it was broken down into general category by year, some of which correlates to, in this next year to the transportation and parking plan, but in general, one of the key things that we need to remember about the age-friendly plan is that it's designed so that it's done and facilitated and executed by those in the public. So, and that's, I guess, one of the things that you're gonna continue to hear me say. We can't take on the entire age-friendly plan. It was never designed to be that way, but opportunities so that as the community desired, kind of like an organically grown, that there is a plan and an outline of how to accomplish it.
I think the plan commission, the planning departments need to be discussed at some point. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Okay. We have 4 minutes.
Yeah.
did we ever resolve, there was a Parks Commission to reflect on the Wilson Drive, did that,
Yes, that was,
deferred kind of, or recommended? You're gonna wait a year?
So,
That's
in the
okay.
notes, I wrote down that when we met, to go through the review of the plans, that there was the general consensus around the room to not move forward with a phase 2 implementation in light of the fact, keep the money budgeted for the street furniture,
Mhm.
and then wait to see what MCTS came back with, because they're not gonna decide the final route structure until the budget is concluded. So, and just so you know, I touched base with Tom Winters, who presented with you about every 2 to 3 months, just because the timeline slides, so, we'll see what comes with that. Initially, we had talked about also doing an article within Shorewood Today. When you look back at prior issues of Shorewood Today, you've pretty much covered Wilson Drive. So, you know, one concept would be maybe for like a picture, like a before and after, but, you know, maybe a next phase is to encourage the discussion about the things that are coming up next with regards to that, so.
There is a phase 2 on the final spreadsheet for Wilson Drive. It was broken down into phase 1, which we did, and then there was a phase 2. So we should at some point just look at phase 2 and rule it out if that's, I think that's what.
I mean, even phase 1, some of those trees are not alive that are planted, the little trees are dead. And there's places where the pavement is like already up from the concrete on this, you know, I mean, there are some issues on Wilson Drive that hasn't even been in a year, that I think need to be reviewed, but that could just be Leanne.
Okay.
But look at that spreadsheet, because there's a whole phase 2, it's like Kensington,
Right,
the
but
pocket.
we've talked about that, but there doesn't seem to be, I think everyone's agreed, even though usable green space was the main reason for choosing the plan, there doesn't appear to be any usable green
Well, look on
space.
Kensington though, there was a Kensington bump out. I mean, that was part of phase 2, I'm just
I
saying.
know, but I think we've covered that in previous.
Oh, I didn't know we voted, okay.
No, we haven't voted.
We haven't voted
I mean, I would like to see the money set aside, I mean, I think Triangle Park is something we've been talking about for
Oh,
several
yeah.
years, and it would be really nice to just pay a landscape
Yeah.
architect to get some
Yeah,
concepts.
absolutely.
I mean, personally, I would